Today, we are getting into a topic I have never covered on the podcast before, and it is good. You're not going to want to miss this. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, stepfamily life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Welcome. Today, I am welcoming back a married couple I have had on before, Meygan and Casey Caston, where a better marriage starts with a better you. And I'm so excited to have them back today. We are talking about something that I have never talked about on this podcast before, and that is sex. I have to tell you, it is something that I get a little bashful talking about. And if you are at all like that, you're going to want to listen to this discussion. It is really good and it's really fun. And Meygan and Casey are the perfect people to talk to us about it. So Meygan and Casey, if you don't know their story, they met in college. They fell in love. They got married. But by the 3rd year of their marriage, they had grown apart and they were headed straight for divorce. But instead of giving up, they put in the work. They went to therapy. They did marriage intensive books, you name it. And they managed to go from the brink of divorce to falling back in love like never before. They have co-founded Marriage 365, which is an online membership community with over 12,000 members that gives everyday couples the tools they need to build healthier, stronger marriages anytime, anywhere. This is a great discussion, and I'm so excited to have them back today. So let's dive right in. Casey and Meygan, I am so excited to have y'all back. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks you for having us.
Yeah. And so excited that you're going to be at this year's summit. And, a lot of times with summit speakers, we do podcasts and we do a little preview of what you're going to talk about, but we are not doing that today. We are talking about something that I have actually never talked about on this podcast before, which I think is going to be a really fun discussion. But before we get into all of that, you have been on the podcast before, so I know that for all the folks that have been listening for a long time, they know you very well. But for anybody that is new, remind us of your background and give me the story about how you got into all of this work.
Well, I think I probably have more experience of growing up in a blended family than you do, because my mom has been married 6 times. So I've had every kind of variation of home life where there's a his, a hers, an ours, stepsisters, stepbrothers, blending, reblending, tearing apart, re-putting back together. And so, that was my norm. Exactly. But Meygan and I, for the past 15 years, we have been trying to figure out, is happily ever after a fantasy or can it be a reality for couples? A lot of couples live with a lot of hurt and resentment, and we figured out a framework of actually how to remove that from the relationship so that couples can find connection. So marriage coaches, authors, speakers, and we love love. Actually,
love love way more than I love love.
But actually, I want to backtrack on that, because love is not the foundation of marriage or relationships.
Tell me more.
Yeah, trust is the most important foundation. So I wish we could say I choose trust instead of I choose love. But, we just focus on love as this feeling, this emotional content. Whereas we've actually tried to figure out there's actually systems and structures and tools that can help couples find connection, even in the bedroom.
I love that. And that's a perfect tee up. But I do love that because I think that especially in blended families, we fall in love and we sort of know that we're getting a partner with kids. But we get into it and it's all of this stuff that we could not prepare for in a million years. And so that trust, love, you do need more than love. And that trust, really trusting your partner with your heart and trusting your partner, when all of these things are going crazy. So I love that. All right. You two are known for having couples talk about the stuff that they avoid. And today's conversation is no exception. And that is, it's something that I find hard to talk about. So I'm really excited about this. So why is sex the thing that couples dodge?
Yeah. Such a great question. And if anyone's listening and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, my palms are already sweating or my cheeks are flushed, that's normal. So we want to normalize that it is very uncomfortable, especially if you don't talk about it often, because our secret to having anyone talk about sex is actually the more you talk about it, the more comfortable it becomes. So I think a lot of people were not raised in homes where anatomy, sex, just even asking questions about anything in the realm of body image, sex, intimacy just wasn't normalized. And so all of a sudden we're supposed to we grow up and we see what we see on television, which is a very skewed, over romanticized, very fantasy-like version of sex and intimacy. And we go and we get married and we're like, shouldn't it just be all natural? Shouldn't it just be organic? And the answer is no. It's not always organic and natural for the majority of people. And so I think there's a lot of shame. There can be a lot of shame in the people's backgrounds. Maybe someone listening had a really traumatic experience, like there was, their first experience of having sex or oral sex wasn't healthy or it was scary. And that kind of puts that fear in you. And so you carry that into your adult life or into your marriage.
I think that's so true. I mean, I grew up in the South and it wasn't something we talked about. And it was something that, we were taught from an early age that like, if you did that, before you were married, you were a bad girl. And not in the fun way, it's you had done something shameful. And so I think that does carry into people's adulthood sometimes if you can't kind of figure out a way to overcome sort of the stigma and the shame that is associated with it when you're young. So what is the best way, if you have a couple that comes to you and like maybe one's really comfortable talking about that and maybe one is carrying some shame, like what would you tell them?
Well, I think like Meygan said, if you're not talking about sex, then bringing up the conversation can feel really, really awkward. Yeah, I too also, Cameron, was, someone that was raised in a very conservative religious background. So I couldn't even say the word penis without giggling and laughing and going, oh my gosh. So the more what really regulated for me and made this a more normal conversation was actually listening to other people talk about it in a respectful way and just saying these words that felt like shameful or had like some, loaded connotations behind it, but talking about it in a very natural way made me kind of like step into it and go, oh, so you can actually have a normal conversation without feeling awkward. So that was kind of like that normalization made it feel easier for me to step into that with Meygan because I'd been hearing it frequently. So I know a lot of people that follow Marriage 365 or they're members, they have access to our app or videos. We're having healthy conversations. And we're not setting it aside as if it's different than communication or conflict or talking about boundaries with your family.
Or money.
Yeah.
It should feel all level playing field because that's just part of life. That's part of your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true.
I think when you bring up the conversation, I always tell people, whether it's male or female, be very positive. Remind your spouse that the reason why you're bringing it up is because you love them and because you want there to be pleasure and fun and joy and connection. And so I tell a lot of women I coach, hey, listen, bring it up this way. Hey, I would love to talk about our sex life at some point in the future. You mean everything to me. I want our sex life to be great. I want it to be thriving. I want you to find pleasure. I want to find pleasure. And I just feel like we haven't had conversations about it. And it's something that would mean a lot to me. What do you think? And then you kind of put it in their court. And then obviously you have no idea how they're going to respond, but you did the healthy thing, bringing it up in a very loving, kind way.
I love that. And talking about the meaning of it, right? Like a lot of people equate sex with intimacy, but those are kind of two different things. Talk a little bit about that and break that down, because I think that that's something that women confuse. I think it's something couples confuse. So tell me a difference and how we can kind of talk about that. Because intimacy, I feel like for a lot of women, that's what they're really craving is the intimacy. And I feel like men can equate some of that. And I'm doing a lot of generalizing here, but I feel like men sometimes can equate intimacy with sex, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Am I way off there? Am I wrong?
I love expanding the definition of intimacy. And I would just say intimacy just equals closeness. Your ability to feel close with someone, safe with them. Yeah, whenever I say emotional intimacy to a bunch of husbands, they look at me cross-eyed like, is that lingerie or what does that mean? Like intimacy, intimates, right? Those are the things you wear, the dainty things you wear. But intimacy should be this idea, like we carry that emotionally, physically, spiritually. But I think going back to actually we opened, intimacy should not equal love. Intimacy should equal high levels of trust.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is someone I feel close. I feel safe. We're able to be vulnerable. We can share our lives with each other. We're not being judged. We have empathy. And I think all of those things stack on themselves. And that's where the feelings start to show up. But if you don't have that basis of trust, then intimacy is going to be really, really hard. And if we go to the bedroom topic, sex can feel like a chore, like an obligation, like, oh, well, I guess we have to do this. I really don't feel safe with this person. They haven't emotionally engaged with me for a while. So I guess I'm just going to put out for him because he's wanting it and he's got needs. Whereas the ideal would be, I feel close with this person. I want to share my life and my body with them because when we have sex, it feels connecting. It doesn't just feel like we're just going through the motions.
Yeah. And that connection is so important. So with step families, they form in the reverse, and I'm stating the obvious here. They form in the reverse way of a first family, right? Like in a first family, the couple meets, they either move in or get married, and they have some time most of the time before kids enter the picture. So they can kind of build that intimacy, build that closeness. But in step families, you're settling down with someone who already has kids. Maybe you're also bringing kids into the picture. You don't necessarily have that, for lack of a better word, intimacy runway. How do you suggest that couple build that in when it's not sort of part of the natural equation in a step family?
It's such a great question too. We are huge advocates for scheduling sex. And I think that part of that is for blended families, but also we're not a blended family. And for us, we're really busy and we feel like we've got kids and they're always around. So, there's a lot of different opinions about scheduling sex. Interesting enough, when we post on social media anything about scheduling sex, ooh, do the haters come out and hate, man? It's like, what? But I do think that there is a mindset of, while we didn't get the traditional honeymoon phase and period because we're a blended family, that doesn't take away the fact that you're still dealing with the same things that other couples like us deal with, which is busyness, time, tiredness. So I don't want anyone to ever have a mindset of like, well, we're just in a unique situation. And so it's going to be a lot harder for us. I actually think it's hard for any couple to find time because it feels like you make time for things that matter. And for whatever reason, it seems like sex just kind of gets the boot. Like it gets the end, it gets the leftovers because we have to parent and we have to make money and work. We don't technically have to have sex, right? So we would say, consider scheduling sex. And I don't know if you would agree with that.
I love that. I would think I have something else to offer, and that is having coached many blended families, they're usually sharing custody. What I would try to do is try to schedule weekends by yourself. So if maybe one partner, all the kids are at the other partner's house and you've got that weekend that's by yourself, take advantage of that. That to me feels like the on-ramp of we don't get a honeymoon where we're like, hey, let's just take off for 10 days. But you can, in the small little chunks of time, you can actually build that like, hey, this weekend, if we both don't have the kids, let's be intentional about scheduling time just ourselves and not just like, okay, we're going to go to the games. We're going to go with our friends. Like make sure you block and protect that time where it's just you two to establish your friendship and build on the connection that you have to begin with.
I love that, building on the trust. I want to dive in a little bit more about scheduling sex, whether it is like appointment time, every week or on a regular basis, or, going away together, or taking some time alone together. But I want to talk a little bit more about the scheduling sex because I feel like the pushback, and tell me, because you guys talk about this, like, do people push back about like, well, gosh, that takes all the romance out of it and it makes it feel mechanical, or, tell me what people push back on that with.
Yes, all the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, it should be like Hollywood, we should just both be in the mood at the same time, which is, by the way, impossible for both of you
wouldn't that be
and your
nice?
spouse to be in the mood at the same time. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? There is a lot of people who feel like if we have to schedule it, then something's wrong with us.
Yeah.
Why can't we organically be romantic at the same time? And I think what I've learned is that our brain is our largest sex organ. So if our thoughts are very negative towards anything about scheduling sex, well, then yes, you bring that into the bedroom. We have to schedule it. This feels like an obligation. Well, of course, then that's how you're going to show up in the bedroom. Versus, here's the mindset is I get to have sex with my husband. We get to prioritize our sex life. Wow, he still finds me attractive even if I've had 3 kids. I want to bring him pleasure. Wow, he wants to bring me pleasure. See the difference? It's all about that and your thoughts and how you view it. And so what we would say is your calendar is a reflection of who you value and what you value. And if your husband or your wife is not in your calendar about anything, date night, connection time, watch a movie time, whatever, then do you actually value them? Yikes. I know it's convicting for everybody. But why, if we schedule everything that matters for our kids, doctor's appointments, orthodontics appointments, why don't we schedule things for our marriage?
Yeah.
And that's what you were saying is like, make sure we've learned, and this is what we're kind of known for at Marriage 365 and our coaching style is you're never going to have the time. You have to make the time and you have to put it in your calendar.
Yeah, you're never going to find the time.
Yeah. And
we hear that all the time.
You talk about time. We hear that all the time.
We hear it all the time.
Yeah, and
I can't find time for my partner.
We work together and we don't have the time. Like we make the time. And so the idea around it is first think about your thoughts. If you've got negative thoughts about it, it's not going to be something versus seeing on the calendar and saying, wow, I look forward to this. Plus, I'm going to say when sex is in the calendar, let's say, for us, it's usually Wednesday nights. There's a lot more foreplay throughout the day. We reserve our energy. Maybe we let the dishes go or we don't do the laundry that day. Like I want to prep and prepare my heart, my body, my mind to get to do this with my spouse.
I love that reframe. And you're right. I mean, I think it is so easy. Most of the stepmoms I work with are all really high performers. Like they're involved in a million things. They're managing households and doing all the stuff. And when you sit down, there are lots of different, I've got the organizer I use and the planner. And we're, for those of us that are kind of sitting down and doing goals and all that, like you're doing all your work goals and the things you need to do at home, but you're not necessarily putting in your spouse. And then you end up starting to take each other a little bit for granted. And then that kind of spirals, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just on a coaching call this morning where I was working with a husband and I said, what are the weekly rhythms that's going to provide connection for your partner? And so we brainstormed on what does that look like? We talk about the weekly marriage business meeting. We should do 15 minutes of connection time every other week, date night. And I said, okay, that's awesome. I love all that. Is it in your calendar? He's like, no. The follow-up question was, how often are you getting to all these? Rarely.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, listen, if you schedule it at 8:00 and it happens at 8:07, just having it in your calendar as a little chip, you can move around, but having that as hey, this is what's going to happen tonight is one of those things where it's creating systems and structure that ensure connection. I think so many people just try to wing it. And when it comes to sex, again, there's not a lot of conversations about it. There's a lot of disappointment. I think we should have it more often, but there's no system. There's no structure to make sure that you're having enjoyable, frequent sex.
It's like the desire is there.
Right.
We know that couples want to have a good sex life or they want to go on a date night, but they're not putting in the strategy behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have to share this because this is really important. I know there's someone listening saying, well, if we have it scheduled and then what if I have a headache? Or what if the kids were a disaster that day and it's in the calendar for Wednesday night at 8:00 and I don't want to do it? Well, that's life, right? That happens. So if it's on the schedule, it's on the calendar, you just had a bad day. You're not going to get there. You've got 2 options. Okay. Number 1 is schedule it for another night. And you want to be the one to make sure you initiate that to say, hey, babe, tonight, there's no way I'm getting there. It was an awful day with the kids and at work. Can we schedule it for tomorrow night? But if you do that, you have to follow through the next night.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, unless they have the flu or something, then no. But, and you need to initiate that because otherwise it looks like you're just avoiding it. and that you don't care. And your spouse is going to feel sexually rejected. And we don't want that to happen. So that's option one. Option two is if you're not in a mood, there are other things that you can do to pleasure your spouse and make it all about them. It doesn't have to be about you. How selfless is that? You know what? I know I'm not going to get there, but let's hop in the shower, take care of your needs. It's an option.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the 4 F's. So you guys talk about foreplay, frequency, feelings, and fun. What do couples struggle the most with?
What do they struggle most with? I'd actually I think feelings. Like, I don't think people really talk about feelings. If they can get to like, well, it's just a data point. How frequent should we have sex? Okay, twice a week. Great. We're done with that. But feelings is probably one of those ones that doesn't get talked about too much. Like, what are your feelings around sex? And then foreplay. When I think about husbands out there that are listening, I mean, talk about the most stimulating conversation, an exciting conversation, and yet we don't get there. And, for guys, when it comes to sex, we have one switch on off. There you go. That's it. For ladies, you've got all these different like dials that you got to focus on. And of course, every month it changes and every day it changes and every year it changes. And I think it actually provides an exercise for us guys to come back to the table and be a student of our wives and say, hey, I'd love to know. It brings me great pleasure to see you orgasm in front of me. Like, it's exciting. How do I get there for you? Like, what do I need to do? What's the steps? Give me the 1, 2, a 3, 4, a 5, 6, 7, right? What is it I need to do to get you there? But I think a lot of guys get, into this performance mindset. Like, I should just know.
Or they're selfish and they just think about themselves.
Correct.
There's a lot of men out there that they probably think that they're really good in the bedroom. Maybe their wife is faking orgasms. And so they're like, well, she's loving it. I guess I'm doing the right thing. And that's where it takes a lot of courage for a wife to say, hey, I need some stuff for me. I need some foreplay. This is what foreplay looks like. And I do think, Cameron, with every female, it is completely different. It's almost like a fingerprint. Every woman, we have our own foreplay. Some women like their breast touched, other women don't. Your husband doesn't know. So we say specific is terrific in marriage. And you should be explicit and specific. And it's not to boss them or make demands. It's just to say, hey, here's what we call it an erotic love map. Every person has their own erotic love map. What's yours? And so the 4 F's give conversation starters and themes for couples to say, we should be having conversations about frequency. How often? Maybe that's around scheduling sex, right? Foreplay. What does that look like for you? What does that look like for me? Fun. If we've been married 23 years, I mean, you gotta have some fun. If it's not fun, no one's going to be doing it. Right?
Do we have chandeliers we can hang from?
Yeah, something. I mean, fun looks different. Same thing. Fun looks different for everybody, right? It's not to judge someone's version of fun. And then, of course, yes, the feelings of, hey, when we do this position, I actually don't feel comfortable. It makes me awkward, and I would appreciate it if we didn't do that. Or I'm feeling rejected, and I want to talk about this.
Well, this was great because under feelings, the question that we have in our marriage habit book called, it starts with, what are some things we can do that will create a safe environment for us to have constructive and healthy conversations about sex?
Love that.
Foreplay. This was a great one. What turns you on most outside of the bedroom? We would like to actually say foreplay isn't just what you do before intercourse. It's actually all day. How are you providing foreplay? Maybe like the pre-foreplay.
Yeah.
Right? How are we investing in our marriage trust-wise to build intimacy?
I think that's so important. And thinking about stepmoms, because that's the women listening, so often in a step family, we talk a lot about stepmoms feeling invisible or feeling like they don't have a seat at the table, or they're feeling like they're on the outside. And, a lot of resentment can kind of start building up because of this step family dynamic, especially if there's a lot of conflict or whatever. And I think that can carry over into the bedroom or into some of the thinking around these conversations. If she's feeling unsupported by her spouse, for example, then it's going to be harder for her to maybe have some of these conversations. So it seems like it also kind of goes back to that point that you made at the very beginning about really working on communication and trust.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of friends that are sex therapists, and they all say the same thing. It's 90% of the issues are the things outside of the bedroom that are impacting the couple connection inside the bedroom. Only 10% of the time it's technique, painful sex, things like that. And a lot of those have wonderful solutions, which is great. So yes, we need to deal with our conflict. We need to be communicating and we need to have high levels of trust. And that will allow us to put our guards down, to enjoy the bedroom. And so yes, resentment is unforgiveness. And we say that takes place in the heart and the head. And then depending upon how long you've had resentment, now it's starting to create like roots. It's like a root system in your life. And so anytime something happens, it's like that resentment is right under the surface. You carry that in your head, in your thoughts towards your husband or your wife into the bedroom.
And because you're a stepmom, you've already previously been married and probably can look back towards the tail end of your marriage, how much resentment impacted your sex life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's your key. We need to clear out resentment in this marriage because I don't want to repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Resentment right there is like, that is the sticky sap that slows the wheels of progress in your marriage.
Yeah.
Really.
I think that's true. And it's, unfortunately in stepmom life, I mean, it can really creep in just by virtue of the dynamic being so different than in a first family. Okay. I want to go back to one of the other F's and I want to talk about frequency because I feel like so often with women and men and even in same sex couples, there's a different drive between the two people in the couple. And that kind of mismatched desire for frequency can create a scoreboard situation that can kind of build on that resentment. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that is true. I feel like, I don't know, I believe in God. So I feel like it's God's humor and balance to balance a marriage. Because if we had Casey's sex drive, we wouldn't be on this podcast because we'd be having sex right now. And if we had my sex drive, we probably wouldn't be having it that often. We maybe wouldn't even have children. I don't know. I think that we look at it and we judge it.
Right.
And I think like I look at people with high sex drives because I have the lower and go, well, that they just want it too much. They're just too horny.
Yeah.
And then I think the people with the high sex drive are like, they're just never in the mood.
So they can get frustrated with each other when they have different drive levels, but then they shame themselves too. Like, what's wrong with me that I don't want it more? Or what's wrong with me that I want it so much?
Yes. 1,000%. And I think that as someone that has the lower sex drive, I've learned that there is a lot behind that. I think a lot of people put themselves in that box, that shame box, to say, well, there must be something wrong with me, or, well, it's just a season I'm raising kids. And again, I'm going to go back to, if our brain is our largest sex organ, it's actually the thoughts that you have towards what sex is. What does it mean to you, your partner, that resentment? I'm so tired. The kids depleted me. If you go into like, oh, I'm exhausted every day, how do you summon the energy and the courage to be like, I want to have fun in the bedroom tonight? You're not going to.
Yeah.
So I would say like a practical habit for someone with a lower sex drive is to go on a walk and but don't listen to a podcast. Just be one with your thoughts and actually tell yourself the good things about your spouse and the good things about sex. So that would be a great exercise for someone to do. But if there's broken trust, if there's a lot of resentment, you're going to have to deal with that. Just thinking positive things about sex isn't going to get you into the bedroom.
Yeah.
Let me just add again, for a healthy mindset, sex is meant to be playful. It's supposed to be fun. This is, maybe we call it the beer goggles for marriage, right? It's supposed to be a time where we're able to give a gift to each other of pleasure. I mean, think about that. Like you said, if it's an obligation, chore, like it's like doing dishes, that's a mindset. It's a mindset shift to just go, no, actually, this is where we're developing our friendship. And this is where I get to give and receive in a very unique, special way. That's pleasure, excitement. And again, playfulness.
I think like to land the plane on the frequency, spouse one has their ideal number.
Yeah.
Spouse two has their ideal number. If you're having a conversation about it, can there be middle ground? And that would be what we would say. So if spouse one is like every day, you're like, okay, well, that sounds great. Spouse two is like, I want it like once a week, twice a week. Can you find middle ground?
On average, what we've heard though, the magic number is twice a week, where one is a longer, deeper connection. There's some foreplay. There's setting up the room. And then maybe another time during the week where it's maybe more of a quickie. It's in the shower or it's like, hey, we've got chores. We got 5 minutes. Can you get there? That's okay. But at least having that one time a week where you're deeply connecting and it's not just, hop on pop, let's get going. Well, the pump and dump is what I call it.
So for the woman who's listening, who is thinking, oh my gosh, I'm resonating with so much of this and I got to reconnect with my spouse and figure out, the frequency, figure out scheduling, figure out, this intimacy stuff. What is the one conversation that they could start with today, their spouse, that would make a difference?
I love that. First, I would like to actually say you can practice the conversation by yourself in front of a mirror, because what I want a woman listening is I want her to feel confident as she can to go into the conversation. I've noticed things go sideways when women feel really insecure about it or they get nervous or anxious. The other technique you could do is actually write it out about what you want to say. And you can read it and just tell your husband, and I'm a little nervous and I don't want this to come out wrong. And so I'm going to read this if you don't mind it. But going back to what we said earlier, starting with something extremely positive. Hey, I'm bringing this up because I love you. I love us. I'm committed to us. And I want us to have a great marriage in every area, including our sex life. I would love to hear some of your desires and fantasies and feelings about sex. And is there anything you want to share with me? Leave it more on the vague side and less detailed, because it might throw your husband off. And just listen and validate and ask, say, tell me more. Thank you for sharing. Create that safe place for him to actually share. Here's what I don't want you to do, though. If he shares and he says something kind of crude or sarcastic, or he's giggling because he's uncomfortable, don't roll your eyes. Don't sigh. Don't be like, well, of course you said that. No, because what that does is that shuts communication lines down.
Yeah.
And he's not going to want to share next time if you do that.
I love this is all such good advice. I feel like for stepmoms listening, you should go back through and listen to this again, because there's so much material here. And I encourage you all to go and buy Meygan and Casey's book. Obviously, you're going to be able to see them at the Stepmom Summit, September 14th to 18th. And I'm going to put some links in the show notes. It's free to attend. It's going to be amazing. And we're going to have more of these kinds of conversations. But Meygan and Casey, tell everybody where else they can find you in the meantime.
Yeah, I think the best place to find us is on YouTube, actually. We've got some great content that's being posted, some long form content where we're doing deep dives on topics. Obviously, you can always find us on Instagram as well.
Yeah, I would actually say go to marriage365.com, because we offer tons of resources, coaching. We have coaches actually that are also help with blended families and things like that as well.
Love it. Love it. Well, I will put all your links in the show notes. And for y'all that are listening, please go find Meygan and Casey. They have got a million resources for you and just some really, really great stuff out there. So thank y'all so much. As always, it is so much fun to talk to you, and appreciate all that you're putting out in the world for couples and families.
Thank you so much, Cameron, for having us back again.
If you're a stepmom, you know how loud our guilt gets, and I know how quiet you've learned to be. Here's something you might not know. There are 14 million stepmoms in America, so you have never been as alone as you feel like. And this year, we're proving it. The 6th annual Stepmom Summit is back, and the theme this year is Out Loud. Live your life loud and proud. Find your voice, take your place, and make no apologies. It is free. It is 100% virtual, so you can join from anywhere. And it's 100% live with over 30 speakers that you can actually talk to and ask your questions in real time. Get on the wait list now, and you'll be first in line to register the moment that doors open on August 24th. Head over to thestepmomsummit.com. Gotta have the "the" in there. Head over to thestepmomsummit.com, and I will see you there. If this episode spoke to you or touched your heart, would you do me a favor? Take 10 seconds to go and follow the show, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with another stepmom who might need to hear it. Your support is going to help grow our blended family community, and you never know whose life you might change.